A very quick pre-episode shout out to say you can sign up for a free newsletter with updates, news and competitions at thebiscuitreviews.co.uk. Also, I'd like to apologise for having this grotty voice with the cold I've got. Soz. Hey up, I'm Nathan Human and this is episode 16 of The Biscuit Reviews. Today's episode feels frighteningly prescient as I take a gander at two books that open a can of technological worms. Worms that can probably spy on us and read our thoughts. Chuck Wendig's Wanderers constructs an end-of-days horror thriller around a virus that divides society, whilst The Ferryman by Justin Cronin produces a seditious version of The Truman Show if it was designed by the makers of Westworld. So come along and join me. It's not scary at all. Well, no scarier than the news right now, I guess. We are not our best intentions. We are what we do, said Amy Dickinson, and I feel like that is a grand summary for a significant portion of the characters in Chuck Wendig's Wanderers. In a book full of global events, it is the small choices and actions of individuals that shape the drama in this epic tale of a devastating worldwide virus. With nods towards The Walking Dead and Stephen King, Wanderers casts a horrifying look at how society is primed to turn on itself. It would be easy to think, a global pandemic that causes a seismic societal split along political lines with provocative voices in the media stirring up hatred. I wonder where this idea came from. Yeah, but Wanderers was released in 2019. We start with the eerie disappearance of 15-year-old Nessie in Pennsylvania, who is found wandering in a fugue-like state barefoot down the middle of the road by her older sister, Shana. Nessie doesn't respond to anything Shana says and becomes worryingly agitated when Shana tries to stop her moving. And then Nessie is joined by another walker. And another? Oh, and you can't physically stop them because, well look, trust me, you just can't. And that's probably not the weirdest thing in this book. Disgraced CDC researcher Benji Ray is called back to investigate and lead the team, but soon events are complicated on three fronts. Firstly, he discovers that an advanced AI called Black Swan that was used to predict and prevent pandemics has requested that Benji be called in. Why? And then a frighteningly deadly fungal disease breaks out with no cure. Both of these situations are compounded as Republican Trump proxy Ed Creel starts grandstanding about the threat the walkers pose, thus igniting a radical militia. If you had to plot a huge sprawling epic of the last 5 years, you would probably pin up most of these themes. Climate change and conspiracy theories get a good mention too. Yet Chuck Wendig manages to avoid so many apocalyptical staples and tropes that this manages to feel original and really scary.
Oh my god. I usually have one foot out of reality, and even I'm freaking out right now.
The arrogance of a billionaire causing a catastrophe, the narcissism of a preacher online, and the panic-inducing omnipotence of AI all feature at key moments, yet it is in the small acts of redemption and human connection that this book does some of its best work. And it is those character arcs that actually reminded me most of Stephen King, not just the terrifying depiction of the depth of evil that human beings can plummet to. It also poses some thorny questions about what it actually means to do the right thing, and what it is that makes us human. It goes without saying, I suppose, these days, with the accelerated advance of AI and digital lives, it's a question we're going to face more frequently, and one which we might struggle to answer. The story is peppered with tense and at times harrowing scenes. If you are in any way squeamish, be warned. The television rights were snapped up almost immediately, but 5 years later I have seen little sign that it is close to being filmed. There is, however, a sequel called Wayward that picks up 5 years after the conclusion of the first book. I haven't read it yet, but as I enjoyed this first one immensely, it goes on my list. Hopefully, if Wanderers goes on your list, you'll enjoy it as much as I did. My biscuit rating for Wanderers is Biscoff Kit Kat. Yep, familiar but with an indulgent twist with an epic feel to it. What? No, it's not cheating. Biscoff is a biscuit. Are you a teacher? a parent, or maybe the author of children's books, then this new podcast might be for you.
Hello, welcome to the Chatterbooks. Each episode we'll chat about the latest books we've been reading, as well as sharing some old favourites you might have missed.
The Chatterbooks is a podcast by children for children about the books they've been reading. There's a new episode every week that clock in at a friendly length of under 10 minutes. The books are all chosen by the children themselves, and they sometimes like to imagine themselves in the books. That's the Chatterbooks, available everywhere. Links at thechatterbooks.co.uk. My next book was a treat to myself from Fox Lane Books, an excellent shop I found via social media while scrolling following my knee surgery.
He rode his bicycle into a tree, CJ.
I had heard nothing about this book or the author. I'm starting to realise just how ill-informed I am, so this was a leap into the unknown. The world is not the world is a key quote in this book, and at the moment I'd quite like that to be true about our own world. But hey, let's escape to Prospera. The islands of Prospera appear to be in humanity's future, yet daily life there has aspects that feel like an idealised version of 1950s Americana. One of a few nods to The Truman Show. On the main island, residents are encouraged to follow their passions and be true to their hearts. This utopia is in contrast to the relative poverty on the Annex, the adjacent island where the maintenance workers live and are ferried to and from every day. Not only do the residents of the Annex feel aggrieved at their lower status and lack of prospects, but they have begun plotting, led by a group not unlike a religious cult called the Arrivalists. So far, this is ticking a lot of my yes please ingredient list for an indulgent long read. Dystopian setting, sci-fi elements, conspiracy theories, mystery, worlds within a world. How about weird? Yeah, we got that covered too. Whilst residents on the main island can live well beyond 100 years old, when they get too old or the satisfaction number on a digital implant drops too low, it is time for them to go to the nursery island to be retired, with their memories wiped and reborn and sent back to the island as a 16-year-old child to be adopted by a couple. Yeah, see, now we are properly into the WTF part, and this is where our main character Proctor comes into it, as his job is to escort retirees to the ferry to take that final journey to the nursery. There are some very rare occasions when a resident has an issue with being retired, but for the most part they all go calmly and willingly, looking forward to their rebirth. When Proctor has to escort a special person to the ferry, they become agitated and whisper the words, "The world is not the world," and also a secret word. It turns out people do not want anyone asking questions like that, and soon Proctor is doing the time-honoured man-on-the-run investigating a government secret and having to trust a stranger thing. The thriller and mystery-solving aspect was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed following the clues. There are a lot of ideas and themes to consider, and at times some of them feel a tad thrown in and then neglected. One recurring theme that is examined from multiple viewpoints is the bond between parent and child, guardian and ward, mentor and mentee, protector and... you get the gist. And also about how this bond can be stronger when it's one we've chosen rather than one we've been assigned by birth. I also thoroughly appreciate any story that gets me to question how we perceive our reality, and in the case of this book, what we think would be our ideal reality. I've returned to this question often, and the Ferryman prods and nudges us in different directions. The Ferryman also throws in what I've seen described, including by the author himself, as a huge twist about 3/4 of the way in. I think if you didn't see some of it coming, then maybe you haven't read many novels like this or any sci-fi adjacent media that much. Although there are more modern influences from The Truman Show and Westworld, it is all too clear that The Tempest looms large, certainly in themes and motifs, if not direct story, with quotes appearing in the latter half. Whilst this signposts the lofty ambitions within, it also perhaps signals some of the story's flaws, with Proctor being a somewhat cold protagonist, or anti-hero, and it lacks the absurd humour of the play. I stumbled across a really good review by Vanessa Armstrong, which is a good read and goes into just how unlikable Proctor is and the depiction of female characters. There's a link in the show notes and at the website. Considering it clocks in at 500 plus pages, it didn't seem like a hefty read, as the pace meant it wasn't long before we were propelled to not just different situations, but completely different settings. The annex and the nursery felt so distinctly drawn and vivid that they could almost be their own novels, and it isn't hard to imagine this book being split into 4 series. I say 4 as that would mean in the modern streaming age a series of 8 episodes. If that does seem like some of the ingredients you'd enjoy, I think you'll have a great time chomping through this. especially if you have time to savour each bite rather than just grabbing a few nibbles at pages here and there. If I'd written a review immediately after closing the last page, I would have been raving about the inventiveness and pacey story. Yet now, after time to reflect, it's actually left me feeling sad for the way it made me think about the ordering of society and people's perceived worth. But maybe that's just because I'm waving my hands vaguely at the world around. But still, it's making me think about it a long time after I closed that last page. My biscuit rating for the Ferryman is a crispy nopper. I said nopper, it's a double P. Fresh and different with a variety of layers, and it left me picking at crumbs for weeks after. That's it for this episode. A reminder, you can sign up for the free newsletter at thebiscuitreviews.co.uk. I promise no spam, no waffle, just biscuits. And remember, if you like listening, why not recommend this show to a friend? If you didn't enjoy it, why not pass it on to someone you don't like? Thanks for listening. I'm off for a brew in a bicky. Until next time, ta-ra.